Cultural Revolution was a social-political movement that took place in the People's Republic of China from 1966 until 1976. It was set into motion by Mao Zedong, the chairman of the Communist Party of China. Its starting goal was to preserve true communist ideology in the country. Already popular, but faced with a country that had been ravaged by war for decades, Mao worked to implement his communist vision for China. In the first 5-year plan, Mao was able to bring tangible economic results to China. He offered his Great Leap Forward as a solution. Under this plan, land would be taken over by the state and worked in a series of agricultural communes. This was, after all, central to the communist ideal. Additionally, increased manufacturing would be a vital target. However, Mao treated the people largely as widgets, easily replaceable no matter the role. As a result, farmers ended up being told to build factories, while engineers and industrial designers were forced to grow rice. When both groups failed, it was viewed as a lack of devotion to the movement, not a lack of required skills. This resulting famine killed tens of millions of people, a sizable chunk of China's population. By the end of the Great Leap Forward, China had little to show for it. Mao was disciplined, but probably within the confines of the party. China inched towards capitalization, but Mao saw that this threatened his idea of communism in China. Proclaiming that all who opposed his methods were capitalists and therefore subversive, he launched the Cultural Revolution. If the Great Leap Forward effectively paralyzed economic growth, the Cultural Revolution threatened the very heart of Chinese culture. Intellectuals were persecuted, with offenders either executed or sent to education camps where they were brainwashed. The same mistakes of the Great Leap Forward were repeated, but this time with a heavier dose of secret police and not-so-secret military units enforcing order. Jiang Qing, a Chinese actress and a major political figure during the Cultural Revolution. She was the fourth wife of Mao and served as the inaugural First Lady of China. In 1966, she was appointed Deputy Director of the Central Cultural Revolution Group. She collaborated with Lin Biao to advance Mao's unique brand of communist ideology, as well as Mao's cultural personality. At the height of the Cultural Revolution, Jiang Qing held significant influence in the affairs of state, particularly in the realm of culture and the arts, and was idolized in propaganda posters. Lin Biao, a marshal of China who was pivotal in the communist victory in the Chinese Civil War, especially in northeast China. Lin became instrumental in creating the foundations for Mao Zedong's cultural personality in the 1960s. The Cultural Revolution was a serious political strife, which made national economy suffer serious damage, and it made many Chinese leaders, intellectuals, democratic personages subject to severe persecution. The behaviors of beating, smashing, looting, and burning during the Cultural Revolution caused a serious negative effect on Chinese culture. It made thousands of cultural relics were damaged or destroyed in the revolution. During the Cultural Revolution, I worked in mining bureau office in Dongchuan, a small village in Hunan province. I saw the paralysis of the entire work. Instead of working, everyone was forced to read the propaganda posters and recite the little red book. What's more, they were forced to resist the bourgeoisie's authority on academy. Intellectuals had to wear the tall paper hats and got punished by parading through the streets. Besides this, the rebels would hold conventions on criticizing and punishing them, sometimes even trampled them. At that time, Dongchuan was separated into two cliques. One was revolutionaries, known as Ba, and the other was conservatives, known as POW. As the time went by, two cliques had a deeper and deeper hostility, and finally, it led to violence. There were two fights in my memory. One took place in Dongcheng department store, and the other took place near a river which was not far away from my house. In the second fight, I could clearly hear the gunshots, and the sound of weapons made me feel terrified for a couple of weeks. At the end of 1968, the revolutionaries took the full power. They set up Dongcheng Mining Berry Revolutionary Committee and overturned the original leader, like me, into the May 7th Quadrille School. That place was approximately 30 kilometers from our home. My husband was sent to another place which was also a long way from our home. And my two little children were taken over by my 68-year-old mother. The whole family fell apart. When I was in the Quadrille School, what I did was study the thoughts of Mao and criticize the capitalist order. Later on, we moved to a farm where we not only had to study, but had to do labor. At there, we built a 200 square meters house by hands and lived there. In the 1970s, we moved again. At that time, we mainly studied to improve our ideology and consciousness. Finally, a year later, Lin Biao's revolution clique was crashed into pieces. Premier Zhou started to take all the work. This brought Chinese economy back on track. Our school eventually was removed, and I went back to my office. In 1976, the Gong Fort finally collapsed, and the Cultural Revolution finally came to an end. The education system. The revolution stopped education system for 10 years in China, which was mainly because the negative effects from the red cards. During this time, the college entrance examination stopped, so students could not go to the colleges anymore. This kind of negative incidents caused China went to a serious situation, but it was not the end of the problems. After that, the economic problem came to the stage. At this period, the economy grew up very slow, even declined. National income declined over than 500 billion yuan. However, at the same time, even most people had the concept of the Cultural Revolution was a mistaken lead. It still has some advantages. During the Cultural Revolution, there were some real accomplishments. By encountering the Cultural Revolution, China succeeded in maintaining proletarian rule, also reform its education, science and technology, and economic in a whole new way. First, education innovation. It promoted new values and outlook that knowledge might be acquired and used to serve the collective good. By the 1970s, worker and peasant students made up the great majority of the university population. Educational resources were vastly expanded in the rural areas. For instance, middle school enrollment rose from 15 to 58 million. Science and technology innovation. As science and technology gradually developed in the 10-year revolution, it had a significant positive impact on China's reputation and relationship between other countries over the world. In April 24, 1970, the 5th year of the Cultural Revolution, China's first man-made Earth satellite, Dongfang-Hong First Satellite, successfully launched. It's an important factor in the international relation pattern and a significant tool to improve economic and science. During the Cultural Revolution, 1.5 million people were killed and millions of others suffered and tortured. The Cultural Revolution's short-term effects may have been felt mainly in Chinese cities, but its long-term effects will impact the entire country for decades to come. Mao's large-scale attack on the party and the system will eventually produce a result opposite to what he intended, leading many Chinese to lose faith in the government. However, the economic policy did have some benefits to agriculture, scientific, and economic innovation. This innovation helped China create a better future at the end of the 20th century.